Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Snark. Today we're going to be going over Hannah Nealman and Daniel Nealman and the trad wifery that is Ballerina Farm. We're going to be going over who she is, her background, their living in Brazil, who Daniel is, her detour to pageant life, the farm, the kids, the birthday egg apron, and so much more. So let's get started.
I'm so excited.
Okay, so before we get started, Sophie, how has your week been? It's Tuesday, February 11th, but how has it been so far?
It has been okay. We had to push back this recording because I guess my washing machine was leaking onto the apartment below, which like doesn't feel like it should be my problem. I'm sorry, I keep saying that. I'm like, Jordan, isn't it like not my problem that my washing machine is leaking? I'm like, Christy, like it sounds like a them problem, the apartment below me. But otherwise good. The Eagles won the Super Bowl, which is producer Jordan's team, Mazel Tov, producer Jordan, and also husband of the pod, Henry, his favorite team.
Go Birds.
Go Birds. So I got a happy husband, which is great. And yeah, I guess that's about it. How's your week been, Christy?
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I was on a long call yesterday with Shannon from Fluently Forward. Trigger warning. And we were just talking about how hard it's been for me this week. Like, I won't go into detail for the privacy of people involved, but it's just been like a pretty heavy week. And I don't think I've even told you, Sophie. It's just been
Yeah, I'm
hard.
like, I don't know what you're referring to.
Yeah, it's just been really hard. And I think that the one thing that's kind of keeping me a bit grounded is this show. Like, it's been a lot of work. I think a lot of people, well, I think people do realize we've been churning out 2 episodes a week on top of two full-time corporate jobs, and we've put a lot of work into this. And I think it's an honor to have so many people listen and have it grow at such a rapid pace. And I think through this time in my life, it's been very grounding to feel like I have something to come back to that's consistent, that despite it being it's hard work at the end of the day. And sometimes you don't necessarily want to show up every single day for the recording as much as I love you and our whole team. It's been nice. Like I feel like I have something to return to and a goal, and I feel really happy about that despite all the turbulence like in my life. So it's just like a bit of a moment of gratitude. I say that most of us take for granted.
Um, First of all, I'm sorry to hear about the turbulence that you've been dealing with. And I'm totally with you, by the way, also about how like it really is kind of just uh a grounding thing to have something that feels fulfilling and makes us happy and clearly makes other people happy, other people enjoy it, and kind of, I feel like it's so easy to feel like, why am I doing any of this? Until you see like the positive comments and the positive feedback, and it's all worth it. Like Christy said, like we both have a lot going on, full-time jobs, increased to 2 episodes a week last month, and it's a lot, but like it's so worth it. And yeah, we love it.
Yeah, and it's all
Maybe
thanks
if you had a business that you
that
are
you were
passionate
passionate about,
about.
then you would know, but you don't. So don't act like you know what it's like to run a business. No, the way that me and my best friend Sarah say that every day when we're pissed at someone, we'll say it no matter what the context is. It always fits, and no matter what the scenario,
Always.
always. So I don't know, anything else you want to speak to up top before we dive into the episode stuff? Anything else you want to shout out to the baby Snarks? Anything you want to plug? Anything?
I don't think so. Life is pretty boring and slushy lately. Like the weather's so gross in New York. It's just been like blah. I'm with you. I feel like it's just been a stressful past few weeks, but like I'm really excited for this episode.
I know. So, what were your thoughts and feelings on Ballerina Farm prior to today? Or did you even have any thoughts and feelings?
I feel like I'm pretty indifferent for the most part. And I think that's because I just don't pay attention to Ballerina Farm. What are Ballerina Farm's pronouns? Because it's really Hannah's account, right?
Right. So, Ballerina Farm is the name of the farm that her and Daniel Nealman
Right.
have in Utah. Her name is Hannah Nealman. He is Daniel.
Right. But like Ballerina Farm is like Hannah's account.
Yes, and he has his own Instagram account called Hog Fathering, and
Oh
it's like
God.
the male tangential account, adjacent account to Ballerina Farm. That is her Instagram handle, and now her brand that she's built like a very successful business on top of.
Okay, so Ballerina Farm is she, her. I didn't I just don't know that much about her. I obviously am aware of her, and I think that she really was brought into my consciousness when the whole apron scandal happened. And obviously the conversations about trad wives have really picked up recently, and we talk about that in our episode that we did with Shannon Fluently Forward about Nara Smith. And yeah, I feel like she's obviously one of the biggest quote unquote trad wife accounts on Instagram, on TikTok. And yeah, otherwise, like I don't know that much. So I'm excited to learn more about her.
Yeah, and we decided to do Ballerina Farm because we covered Nara Smith on Shannon's Fluently Forward that just dropped on February 10th. So if you haven't listened to that, go ahead and, you know, pause, listen to that, and you can come back over here. But we thought, okay, Ballerina Farm, there's a lot of conversation with her, particularly when the Times article dropped in July 2024 about the problematic nature that was Ballerina Farm. That was primarily her husband, Daniel Nealman. And she was completely out of my line of focus. I really had no idea who she was. And I think maybe it's because I I don't know. I'm not really on that side of TikTok. I'm more on like gay man doing parodies TikTok. Like that's more of my
Hmm.
algorithm,
Yeah,
less
same.
trad wifery,
Yep.
Mormonism type vibe.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I will say that I heard a lot about her when I was a listener of the Toast, which I no longer abide to. But Jackie Oshray was really into Ballerina Farm, which now that I read more about her comes as absolutely no surprise because Jackie's values and just the traditional gender norms that Ballerina Farm really
Hmm.
uplifts is very adjacent to Jackie's own line of thinking. So it completely makes sense that she's such a fan of hers. But I remember when the article dropped and just hearing from the girl's viewpoint of the toast and thinking, kind of, I was still really quite indifferent. I'm like, I don't really know the whole story. I didn't read the article, whatever. But I think more the more that I read about this, the more research that Olivia did, and the more that I was reading the outline, have you read Tara Westover's Educated?
No.
So it's an autobiographical book about a woman that grew up in it's been like years, but basically she grew up in like an basically Amish type of lifestyle. Her mother didn't believe in Western medicine. Like her brother had almost had his leg amputated and she refused to like take him to a Western medical doctor to perform surgery. She like gave him tinctures and like peppermint to, heal his wounds. A lot of that kind of reminds me of this type of lifestyle. We are almost kind of going back in time to like a pre-Western civilization and living off the land. And I think a lot of the times that lifestyle is really glamorized, especially when it comes to platforms like TikTok, when you see
Hmm.
these beautiful lifestyles and you're like, oh my God, I'm just sitting here like a corporate slave in front of my computer all day. And how lovely would it be to be on a farm just taking care of cows and, milking them and being able to eat farm to table with all of my 9 children. It looks really glamorous, but I think at the end of the day, you can kind of take a step back and you unveil the curtain and you're like, holy shit, this whole thing is actually quite problematic. And we can go into why. So, shall we dive in?
Yeah, let's dive in. And actually, it reminds me of, do you know who Liver King is? Just you
Is it
saying living off the land.
Okay, is it the people that like to eat meat,
Liver,
like
meat, like,
animal organs?
yes, he's nuts. And when I first started dating Henry, his roommate, and I think JD, if you're listening, JD has listened to a couple episodes, I think. So shout out JD. JD was obsessed with liver and like eating the raw organs and the raw meat. And this guy was like jacked. And it turns out that he was it turns out that he was on steroids. And
Mm.
and JD felt like a little bit deceived. Anyway, it sounds kind of similar. Let us know if we should do a Liver King episode, you guys.
It kind of reminds me of people that kind of prescribe to that alt-right lifestyle.
Yes, it's
It,
like RFK. It's like
exactly.
Maha.
Maha.
Maha. Make America healthy again.
Yeah. And so, yeah, what is a trad wife for those of you that do not know? Similar to Sophie and I, we're kind of blind to this before. So it's short for the term traditional wife, and a trad wife is a married woman who chooses to be a homemaker as a primary occupation and adheres to or embodies traditional femininity and female gender roles, often associated with conservative or alt-right political views. So who is Hannah Nealman? She's a 34-year-old influencer, business owner, known for posting about homemaking, farming. She raises 8 children, and albeit with zero nannies or help. She prides herself on not having any help, nannies, babysitters. She only allows people to come into her home to watch her children when her and her husband decided to go out for date night. But she prides herself on, I raise every single child on my own. Ballerina Farm is the name of Hannah's farm in Kansas, Utah. Excuse me, Camas, Utah, which is 30 miles outside of Salt Lake City. And it's the name of her online store and Instagram page. And her growth has just been absolutely astronomical. So in 2021, she boasted 200K Instagram followers, which is nothing to sneeze about. Now she has over 10 million on Instagram and 9.8 million
It's
on
insane.
TikTok. It's absolutely crazy.
It's insane growth. And also, like, it just goes to show, I know that, like, I feel like 2020 and 2021 is when we saw, like, the huge proliferation of, like, TikTokers and influencers that previously didn't have that big of a platform. But, like, even like Alex Earl, I feel like she just recently, in the past, like, 2 years, blew up. Like, it's so crazy how much social media can just, like, change your life if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think about back to even 2012 when Alex, I think his name is Alex from Target, who was featured on Ellen. And people like that would go viral. And you had these moments where someone would take this candid photo out in the wild and it would blow up and you would be featured on Ellen. Whereas now it's like if you kind of hit your niche audience and you have this target kind of content that you are churning out, you will find that niche audience to align
Hmm.
exactly with it. And I think when it comes to trad wifery, it's almost this illusion of it's an escapism, really. Because I think 99.9% of the people that follow her, more likely than not, have no idea what she or can even understand what she does on a day-to-day basis. But because it's almost this not only idyllic lifestyle, but also aspirational lifestyle that most really cannot achieve unless you come from privilege, which we'll get into, I get why she is so appealing to the masses.
Hmm.
Um, so there's a New York Times article that published that kind of, I think, really poignantly discussed why she is so controversial. So they said, quote, in a polarized time, Miss Nealman is simultaneously one of the most popular social media stars in the country and a lightning rod to stay home, raise the kids, support the family farm. Or is she, as her detractors would argue, someone who uses social media to push for a return to traditional gender roles while glossing over the privileges that allowed her to have such a lifestyle in the first place? And we will get into a little bit about her husband, but do you know anything about Daniel
I was
Nealman?
gonna say, like, the privileges would be her billionaire husband, correct?
Correct. And I think that's part of I don't think they necessarily disclosed that when they became up and getting really famous. And it's been learned like, oh my God, he comes from like a really wealthy family, like a billionaire family. His father has founded multiple companies, like a digital security company. Obviously, he's one of the early founders, I think founders or president executives of JetBlue. He also was responsible for taking TAP Air, one of Portugal's top airlines, private, like into private equity sector. They just come from a lot of money. And I think more often than not, when you see these idyllic lifestyles, you think, well, that could be me, the way that they tote themselves and the way that they
Hmm.
platform themselves is such that they have this $30,000 oven while at the same time they have a $400 KitchenAid. So you're like, wait a minute, that could be me. I could afford that, not that it's a minimal expense, but most people, if you save enough money, you can afford that $400 KitchenAid. And they appeal in that kind of way. And I don't know, have you ever like felt a desire to live off the land and have this trad wifery lifestyle, Sophie?
I mean, I feel like part of me is like, we were meant to just pick berries all day, like as human beings. Like, as like the men go hunt, the women go pick berries. Like, why do I have to like work and sit at a desk and like stare at a screen all day? Like, part of me is like, why can't I live in 200 BC, you know? Um, but at the same time, I feel like I was born in the perfect era because I love Timothy Chalamet. I love podcasts. I love
Yes.
podcasting. I love scrolling on my phone. I love
No,
watching Severance. I love watching The Traitors. So, I definitely have those moments where I'm just like, ah. And I feel like, the trad wives just in general, or whoever it is on social media that lives on the farm or lives off the land or whatever it is, it does look really idyllic, especially for someone like me that lives in the concrete jungle. Um, I don't know. What are your feelings on it, Christy? Do you ever have that urge?
You know what? As you were speaking, I was thinking about my own upbringing, and I grew up in like suburban Southern California, Orange County. You grew up in the Midwest in Ohio. We
Mhm.
didn't also come from super conservative type religious families. I mean, you're Jewish, but I don't see you as someone who's like super orthodox or someone who
No,
abides
no,
by
no,
like
no.
the book of the Torah, right?
No.
And I for also did not grow up with religion. So I think actually that probably plays a lot more of a role than we realize because I think
Mm.
we just didn't grow up around that, around people that with I didn't have a lot of siblings growing up. Like I have one sister. We didn't farm off the land. We like went to Ralph's or Vaughn's or whatever. It's not a life that we understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
You, you're like, I have one sister. We didn't farm off the land. Like,
yeah, like
yeah, it's like I just like had my one sibling and we just like got groceries.
yeah, like my mom was also like an immigrant from Taiwan. Like they're like, what the fuck are you talking about?
But
Like,
even when people are like, oh my God, like my mom would make the best like homemade. And I'm like, my mom would make the Alfredo that came in like the powder, like box packet thing. And like nothing against that. But it's like we're very like, we just went to the grocery store and got the pre-made stuff.
no, you once referred to yourself as a latchkey kid, and I'm like, that is
Yeah,
so me. Like me and my
I
sister went to
was.
the YMCA after school because we needed daycare because both my parents
Hmm.
worked. Like
Yeah.
I think that especially people like Secret Lives of Mormon Wives or Real Housewives of Salt Lake
Hmm.
City, I'm sure that people that grew up in that kind of atmosphere really understand this and probably would like this type of lifestyle. It's like you
Hmm.
almost don't want it if you don't even realize it's something that is available to you growing
Yeah.
up.
Even like speaking of being a latchkey kid, even maybe people that grew up with a stay-at-home mom
Yes.
and the dad that was the sole
Oh,
breadwinner, like that wasn't our upbringing. Like both of our parents worked. We had working mothers. And like I feel like that set an
hmm.
example for us, not saying that
Yes.
one is better than the other, but like, we're obviously working women and aren't living that trad wife lifestyle. But some people might, they grew up with the traditional gender roles, and our gender roles were a little different that we grew up with.
Yeah, and I'm really curious for because our listeners come from all places, different countries. You know, if you did live in this kind of idyllic lifestyle, maybe in a more conservative household, religious household, was this like an attainable lifestyle? Is this something that you would have wanted to see for yourself? Leave us a note in the Spotify comments if you're listening on that platform. But speaking of working women, Hannah, her first love was dance, and she studied at Juilliard. And every time I think of Juilliard, I think of just like center stage with Zoe
Oh my God, I
Saldana.
love that movie. I
Oh
love
my
that
God, the
movie.
way it shaped me. But she was an actual protege. Like she was so talented. So at 14 and 15, she attended Juilliard's summer ballet program. And at 16, she ended up getting a full ride to
And by the way,
BYU.
just interjecting to say that if you guys don't know, Juilliard is like extremely competitive. Like she is
Yes.
talented.
Tiny. I think I read somewhere that the acceptance rate was like 5 to 8%. It's very competitive. It's
Yeah.
it's like the Harvard of the
Yes.
arts.
Yeah.
So the summer before her senior year, she's back in Utah at BYU, and Daniel's playing lacrosse at BYU, and he starts dating Hannah, and they meet. They have this whirlwind romance. He ends up deserting the lacrosse life and he moves to New York City while Hannah continues out her senior year at Juilliard. And then 1 month later, they're engaged. 2 months after that, they're married. And she would go down in school as the first undergraduate ballerina to be a mother. And she explains that her first son was not an accident. They were ready. Motherhood was her dream. God was guiding me as he always had. And I think a lot of the criticism around Ballerina Farm is, oh my God, this woman, being a dancer is hardcore, especially not just a dancer, but being a ballerina. Like that takes your entire childhood all the way up to like continuing to pursue that through your adult years. Like your aspirations had to have been so high for yourself. And
Hmm.
there's a lot of questioning about why did she choose to leave this life that she worked so diligently on all the way through her 20s to then leave it for like to live in the wild in Utah with her husband. And I think a lot of that is centered around the decisions that people believe Daniel made on behalf of her. And I don't know, I think based on your conversations and your viewing of Salt Lake City, what is like the dynamic between the husbands and the wives, or like secret lives of Mormon wives? Do you really see them as these like demure, timid women that are kind of manipulated by their husbands? Is that what you're viewing on TV? Because I don't watch either of those shows.
Well, the Real Houses of Salt Lake City are definitely not timid. But I would say that it's obviously a traditional religious culture if you grow up Mormon in Salt Lake City. So they're Mormon.
They're
Is
Mormon. Yes.
that okay? So
Yes.
they're Mormon. Okay. And again, that kind of tracks and these Mormons often have a lot of kids, a lot of siblings. Uh I assume that has something to do with religion and maybe they don't believe in birth control. I don't know enough about Mormonism, you guys. I actually on Shannon's podcast, I called it like a brand of Christianity and I saw a comment on Spotify that was like, it's not a brand of Christianity, it's XYZ. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm Jewish. Like I really don't know enough about
Yeah.
Mormonism or Christianity in general. Um
But it's actually
but
interesting that you say that. Sorry to interrupt, but it's
no,
interesting that you
go.
say that because I was watching a TikTok and Daniel and Hannah were doing an AMA and someone asked, do you guys go to church? And they said, yes, we are members of the Church of Latter-day Saints and we consider
Mhm.
ourselves to be Christian. So again, I'm not religious. Sophie's
Yeah,
Jewish. So I
it's
don't really understand the distinction.
It's called the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I think so. It has Jesus Christ in the name. I don't know, you guys. Like, someone explain like what Mormonism is to me. I mean, I do know what it is, but I think I'm confused about where it falls under the umbrella of Christianity because I know
Mm.
that Christianity has a bunch of like, you have Protestants,
Sex. Yeah.
evangelicals, sects, Catholics,
Yeah.
like I just all of that falls under one umbrella to me. So like I don't know.
Yeah.
But they are considered Christian.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, self-proclaimed. I saw a TikTok of him saying, yes, I consider myself Christian.
So, okay, commenter on Spotify. See, it is a brand of Christianity.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So I think it was really interesting. Olivia, our researcher, said she brought up a really good point. She goes, listen, like women can have more than one dream and it can surely change and evolve as you grow. Like my dreams have certainly changed as I've
hmm
grown up. And I've talked about it on this podcast on the Paige and Craig episode. Like never once did I think at my age I wasn't going to be married, that I was going to be sitting in front of a mic. Like I never determined this. So things can change as you grow older. And I think it's hard for people often, as Olivia pointed out, for people to see women as multidimensional in this way. And some women do like it for the men to lead. Like they would prefer it actually. And I think in some moments of
Yeah.
my life, I'm not in a relationship, but I think it would be kind of nice to not make decisions. Like I'm always fucking making decisions, whether it's at work, whether
hmm
it's for this podcast, whether it's just like planning a trip because I need full control over every time I go on a trip. I'm like, my friends leave it to me. Like maybe it would be kind of nice. Maybe it won't. But I think that's kind of part of the
hmm
Mormonism culture is like the women allow the men to lead. In fact, it's encouraged. So I think despite what you may think about Ballerina Farm, I think it's not controversial to say that if it was in fact his decision to make her leave her life in New York, it was probably the way that she perceived it was like, maybe
hmm
this sucks, but this is kind of the way that God would want me to like lead right behind, not even lead, just follow him into this path.
Yeah. And we talked about this on the Nara Smith episode too, about how like if a woman wants to be a trad wife, like okay, that is not, I don't see that as a problem as long as, that's not she's not necessarily pushing the agenda onto the masses. And I think that's the criticism of Ballerina Farm is people feel like she is pushing that agenda. But if someone wants to be a trad wife, like I have people in my life that went to school, went to grad school, and now are stay-at-home moms and are so happy because it's their dream to be a mom and a
Yeah.
stay-at-home mom. Like that is okay. That's their prerogative. And I think Olivia is so correct that like maybe your dream evolves. Maybe you dreamed of being a whatever it is. Why can't I think of a single career? An astronaut, a marine
A
biologist,
marine bio,
a
someone
marine.
someone commented on our Spotify. I can't remember if it was Shannon's or ours, but they said, Gen Z here. We too wanted to be marine biologists. I'm
Like
like, oh
everyone
my
wanted
God.
to be a marine biologist. So say you went to school and grad school, invested years and hundreds of thousands of dollars to be a marine biologist, and then maybe you meet the love of your life and you're just like, you know what? I want to be a mom. That's actually like my dream right now is to be just a mom. Like that's okay. That happens. I'm sure it happens for men too, where they're just like, I want to be a stay-at-home dad. That's a
Yeah,
thing. Not as
abs
not as much, obviously, but.
It's totally acceptable. And I think this is like a good segue into why I think people are triggered specifically by the Nealman family and them hawking tradwifery because they are selling something that is truly unattainable and truly impossible for the average person, 99.9% of America to actually achieve. So there was a point in time when Hannah and Daniel decided to move to Brazil for Daniel's work. He was like in corporate America. He did this stint, this rotation in Brazil. They lived in Sao Paulo together. And this is when they began their love of farming and animals. And there was this point where they were smuggling farm animals in the trunk of their car to bring back to their home in Sao Paulo. And they said that long before we had accumulated a small farm's worth of critters, we worried that the HOA would end up coming knocking on our door. And they realized, we don't want to stay in Brazil anymore. We want to go all the way to Utah, back to our roots, and we want to start a farm there. And so they did. But really quickly, what I want to speak on his upbringing. So Daniel was a director of a home security company named Vigzul, which was founded by his father. So nepotism is deeply embedded into their family. And he has a reported net worth of 6 million, which is definitely a large chump change, but his real money is coming from his generational wealth. His dad is a literal billionaire, which makes Daniel worth over 400 million. And his father, David Nealman, again, he's a Brazilian American businessman. He's founded multiple companies. And because he's acquired so much generational wealth, they are platformed in such a way where they give this attainable lifestyle while at the same time not really being honest and transparent with their followers that, hey, we are able to live on this multiple acre farm with 9 children and own all this cattle and livestock because we can afford to do so. And I think that's why people are pissed. They keep saying like you guys aren't disclosing the wealth and privilege that both of you guys. I don't think she came from a lot of wealth and privilege, but he did. And it's like, how dare you
Mhm.
tell everyone that what you're selling, like you're literally profiting off of us. You're selling all these products from Ballerina Farm while at the same time not mentioning that like you were able to do this because Daniel came from generational wealth.
First of all, I'm curious when people discovered that Daniel is a billionaire or comes from a billionaire family. Second of all, I just found out that Bronwyn Newport from Real Houses of Salt Lake City is Brazilian and she just got her American citizenship. So I'm curious what the link between Utah Mormons and
In
Brazil
Brazil.
is.
That's actually a really good connection because I think those two locations, the probability of like two public figures both having like similar familiar ancestries in both
Right.
areas is unlikely to me.
There could be no connection, but
But
like
that's like the probabilities.
I feel like now that I'm hearing this, I feel like there has to be. So curious about that, you guys.
Yeah, so yeah, that is really interesting. Let us know in the comments or in our Instagram at SnarkBaitPod. So let's talk about Hannah's pageant life. So she was a pageant girl. She's been a pageant girl since she was a young girl. At 17, she competed for Miss Springville. And at 18, she was second runner-up for Miss Utah. She competed in Miss New York City. So she's like a gal about town. And I think the most I don't want to say disturbing, but I guess some people would say it's quite disturbing. So in 2023, she competed as Mrs., which I didn't realize was a thing. It's not Miss South Dakota, it's Mrs. South Dakota. And she was crowned Mrs. American.
That
Um,
reminds me of when people are like, wait, but that's not a maid of honor. That's a matron
matron.
of honor. And I'm like, shut the fuck up.
No, it's like, remind me that I'm single. Like, please, as if I don't have to know. It's crazy. But I think a couple things. She competed in a one piece bathing suit, which is very non-standard when you're competing in these beauty pageants. Typically, it's a two-piece bathing suit, but that's like just the top of the iceberg, tip of the iceberg. So she had just given birth to her eighth child when she was competing in this pageant, 2 weeks, okay? And while she no longer
Oh
had to
my
wear
God.
postpartum diapers, she did admit that she was still bleeding a little while performing in a bathing suit, albeit a one piece. She was still bleeding from this eighth pregnancy,
Oh
this eighth
my
labor.
Oh my God.
So people were asking, is this some kind of empowerment or is this somewhat of an oppression? And like, listen, I've never been pregnant. I have no idea what that feels like to give birth to a human and having to bounce back and be literally on your feet in heels, no less, in front of
Yeah,
crowds of
that sounds
hundreds.
horrible, objectively horrible.
Right. So I think that's part of the reason why it's a little bit dark-sided. People are saying, why are you expected to go out 2 weeks postpartum? And,
I can't imagine that she would want to do that.
right. I think most women, I mean, some people can't even get out of bed because of period cramps, which can be really
Yeah.
severe.
It also, it's like I don't know if you know about like what a bris is when a
Yes.
Jewish woman, yeah, yeah, yeah. If you have a boy, 8 days after when the baby boy is 8 days old is when the bris happens, which is the circumcision ceremony in Jewish cultures. And just 8 days after giving birth, the mom is expected to show up and like be, presentable. And some women are just like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, we're just going to, just do it at the hospital. Like, not going to
Yes.
have like the whole like bris thing because you just gave birth.
Right. I think that's a really good analogy to this. And I think the expectation is that if you want to, great. But again, that's more of an intimate
Yeah.
gathering and it's more understandable. Like, you can show up in front of your friends and family, but in front of hundreds of strangers, it almost feels
Yeah.
objectifying.
In a bathing suit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, let's not forget, like me showing up in a bathing suit to a couple people, let alone hundreds of people postpartum. Like, I forgot about that
Yeah.
as well. I think the most really sad and like dark side of this whole thing, and what people were quick to point out online, was in this year when she was competing in Mrs. America, her father was dying of cancer, and he ended up attending the pageant. Went to Las Vegas to see her Mrs. World pageant, and he passed shortly thereafter in January of
Ay.
2024. And people were saying, he was seen being wheeled around Vegas. He was unable to hold his head up. This upset people online because they said that he was robbed of a peaceful and comfortable transition. And Vegas is not really a place for someone to be in that condition. And not only were they, moving him around in his wheelchair, but they were also posting like pretty just provocative photos, and provocative in the way that, when someone is in that state, it's really hard to see them. And I think it's not really maybe someone's wish to be kind of put in front of your 10 million followers on Instagram while you're at your weakest, and so people were pretty pissed about it. They're saying, why are you posting your dad while he's near the last days of his life to your 10 millions of followers? This is too much. Like it kind of toes that line that we've talked about with young children being posted on social media. They don't really
Hmm.
have the autonomy to say yes or no. And like similarly, I think with older people as well,
Yeah.
that people don't
Elder
really,
abuse.
yeah, elder abuse. And I think there's like funny comments on TikToks. It's like, I hung out with my 90-year-old neighbor because no one was attending their Super Bowl party. And even sometimes I'm like, it's sweet and all. Like I get what you're trying to do, but also is that it kind of toes a line of if you're being
Hmm.
exploitative of this older person that not doesn't really understand the gravity at which their face is being exposed to tens of millions of people online.
Totally. Ugh, that makes me like nothing makes me sadder than that. Like the Jen Shah thing, like
Please.
just any type of situation where I feel like an elderly person is being taken advantage of, like makes me want to cry.
No, something about older people, it's more than like even young, like even babies. I get more sentimental when it comes to old people. I don't know why. Um, but Daniel posted photos of his father-in-law's corpse being carried out once Hannah's father had passed
I hate
across the
him
river.
already. I hate Daniel already.
And
Hate
so
him.
people were saying, is this a shock value rage bait post? Like it enraged people. And obviously this is like a very personal decision for families, I think, of like what you should and should not post. But also at the same time, it's like, well, what about Hannah's family members? What about how they felt about you posting their dead father for in front of your tens of millions of followers? Like some things just need to be kept more private. Um,
Totally. Oh my God, that
it's
is shocking.
it's dark and disgusting. So let's quickly talk about their farm that they invested in Utah. So I misspoke earlier. It's 328 acres, and they also have a farmhouse that's over 100 years old, and it boasts 2,500 square feet.
So, fun fact about me is I have no concept of what an acre is.
I just feel like the plot of land that my home stands on is like not even close to an acre. And if I think of even 300 of my homes, like that's even a lot. So then you like multiply. You know what I mean? It's just like think of
I
your family
wonder if,
home.
or like, is an acre like one block like of New York? I'm so annoying. I'm like, I'm such a city girl. Like, is an acre like a block?
We're like not from the country, guys. So okay, so our producer Jordan, thank you so much. She says if you can picture a football field, that's pretty close to an acre in size.
Oh my God, that's bigger than I thought it
No,
would
me too.
be.
That's actually crazy to think about.
Okay, wow. Yeah, yeah.
Um, so they portray this idyllic and achievable lifestyle, like we spoke about, when in actuality, you need to come from like significant wealth and privilege to live the type of life that they have. And it's like they tout this, look, you can have a farm too. You can drink raw milk and have cows and chickens, but the caveat, the asterisk on that is that if you're rich. Um, sorry, I'm just reading it like,
I,
sorry, Jordan.
I no, you're good. I I don't understand the whole raw milk thing. I know that that's like a recent trend, but I'm so shocked. Or maybe it's not a recent trend. Maybe it's something that people have been doing for generations. Either way, it's become with the whole RFK Maha thing. All of a sudden, everyone's talking about raw milk. I like
Yeah.
don't, it's like normal people also that like I would think are more normal are like on Instagram being like, yeah, so my raw milk just picked it up from the market.
You should go to
Like,
your local dairy farms and get
l-
some raw milk.
I'm like, are you not like worried?
So the one thing I can say about raw milk is it reminds me of lames and put that on
The way that you like turn your head and shout into the abyss,
because
lames.
I don't want to bother the listeners and have Jordan kill me if I scream into the mic, but I cannot say his name without saying it like that to be clear. So Lames loves to drink raw milk. He's like, I can't even do a stupid fucking accent because he pisses me off so much. But he always touts raw milk. And like I think there is something to say about people that have, like for instance, my cousins, they live in like a kind of like a wealthier part of the Bay Area and they have chickens. And to me, I'm like, that's so aspirational, like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, you have your own chickens or coops, whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
then you think about cows and it's like, oh fuck, you're like rich if you have a cow. You know what I mean? Or like, I don't know, to me it just touts this like I'm better than you. Like I have wealth, I have money. I don't know. Am I making sense? Is that
No,
like
that makes sense, but like that's not how I look at people who drink raw milk. I think they're like gross and scary. Like
no, like
I also am not someone who gives a fuck about like even Henry, my husband, is like, buy the coffee creamer that doesn't have like the gums and the oils and like that stuff in it.
yes.
I'm like, I do not care. Like I said, my mom would make like the fettuccine pasta
Yeah.
that came in a powder. Like
No.
I am not bothered by things that have been processed. I'm sorry. I choose Splenda every time over sugar.
100%.
Every single time. And
Mm-hmm.
even like my father-in-law is a gastroenterologist. He's like, stay away from the Splenda. It's really bad for you. And I'm like, I don't care. I literally don't care.
Okay, so Olivia said that people can get really sick from drinking raw milk because it can cause bacterial infections like E. coli, salmonella, listeria, tuberculosis, viral infections. It's very dangerous for pregnant women and, of course, children. And it's actually banned in 16 states. So I think, and something that was, oh, sorry, go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say it reminds me of the lunch lees, the moldy lunch lees, because they're like
Yeah.
no preservatives, but it's like preservatives are good sometimes.
Sometimes you just like have to close your eyes and just trust that like it's gonna be
Yeah.
okay. And you know what I was
Yeah.
actually thinking about? This came into my mind as I was reading this outline. My grandmother it lived to 101 years old, okay? You, she was the most frugal woman ever. She wasn't doing this raw, whatever. She just ate and they were poor. Like my family didn't was not wealthy. They grew up poor, ate preservatives. That bitch lived to be 101 with all due respect to my
Oh my God,
grandmother. Love her.
always, always. It's always like the oldest man in the world says that his diet consists of McDonald's and Dr. Pepper. I'm like, that's reassuring, first of all. It's like the guy, like Brian Johnson or whatever his name
Of
is.
course.
The guy.
Of course, of
Because
course.
we need a Brian Johnson episode. I'm obsessed with him. I'm obsessed with him because he's the guy that's like obsessed with like living forever and he in like all of the little like health like things and like rewinding the clock and injecting his son's blood into his face or whatever the fuck he does. But like you could get hit by a car tomorrow, you know?
No, it's like just live a little. You know what I mean? Just like let yourself have the ice cream, let yourself have the full fat, but like at least just don't eat things that you know could be born with like virus
Right.
infections. Like just
Wait,
use
sorry,
your
one
head.
more thing on Brian Johnson. I guess like one of the procedures that he was like doing on himself or whatever it is, they revealed that it was actually accelerating the aging process. And it reminded me of like Regina
I
George
was gonna say Caltine
in Mean
bars.
Girls in the Caltine bars. Okay, sorry.
No, when you were saying it was doing the opposite, all I could think was, oh my God, you gain weight like crazy.
Brother.
Fucker.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm getting us
Wait,
so off track. Wait,
it's
Jordan, you as Jordan, our producers, go stay on track. Okay,
LOL.
sorry.
LOL. Stay on track. LOL. No, we always say Jordan, she cracks the whip on us.
She's cracking the whip.
No, love it. Okay. So let's quickly talk about her kids. I think the most controversial thing when it comes to her children. So she has 8 children, and when the Times did their op-ed on her, a huge point of concern in that article was that she had all 8 kids naturally, with the exception of one. I believe the name was Martha. When she had Martha, she had an epidural because she was in a hospital. Daniel was packing meats. It was meat packing day at the farm. So he actually wasn't in attendance for the delivery. And she whispered under her breath while Daniel was in another room taking the call, the epidural was really great. Like she loved it. Okay. And people were like, how dare you control
I do
her?
remember this. I do remember this, and it pissed me off that this man was preventing her from getting epidurals.
Like I've never been pregnant, and I've had friends that have given birth naturally with like at home. Like God bless their souls, could never be
Oh
me.
my God, absolutely not.
But it is up to the woman, whatever she decides to do with that birthing experience. How dare like
Oh my
Daniel
God,
dictate it?
fuck Daniel. Also, I hate when my husband's like packing meat so he can't like come to the delivery of my child. Hate when that happens.
No, and like the way that they handle their children, I think it's great when you have children and they help with like the family business, right? But it's another thing when people are, you know, speculating, did they have their children to be farmhands? And there's these like really concerning pictures on the internet that she took herself, Daniel or Hannah took herself, of the children doing like pretty intense things that a 7-year-old should not be doing. I have here in our outline and we'll post it on on our Instagram reels. Follow us at Snark Pod. But there's a picture of her, like literally, she looks 4. She's handling a very large knife and she is cutting garlic, chopping garlic.
That's rage bait. Like I feel like that has to be rage bait.
I completely agree. Like, you cannot be that stupid. You
Right.
want engagement and you want people to comment so that your algorithm and your engagement goes up and people are more likely to give you
Exactly.
money and work with you. No, I actually agree. That's a good point. And they post things like them handling like really, really scalding hot water, and it's just talking about dark energy. And I think like there's a degree to which you should have your kids learn and understand the craft that is like working on the farm, helping around the house, but it's a whole other thing to have them handling super hot water or working with cleavers.
Cleavers? Oh, what?
No, it's like
Cleavers? My God, not the cleavers.
um so
They
there's
should
a
be at the club. What are they doing with cleavers?
exactly. And
They should be at the Chuck E. Cheese.
yeah, like Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and I took
Yes.
my pizza
Yes.
party at Chuck E. Cheese.
My
If you watch Beverly
God.
Hills, then you know what we're
You'll
talking
know
about.
what we're talking about.
So there is like a quick detour. Let me do a quick detour on Hannah's relationship with food. So I've talked about this, like my treatment facility for my eating disorder. So I learned a lot about dancers. And I'm not saying this is like necessarily how it is for all dancers, but there were a couple dancers in my treatment facility that explained, especially ballerinas. It was a huge thing in ballerina culture that before fittings, before you would go in for like your recital, people, and trigger warning, like you just don't eat. Like it's very common in the culture. And in fact, it's actually odd if you don't like basically starve yourself before these fittings. So I'm not speculating or saying that she does have an eating disorder. I don't know, but there is a lot of questioning on like her food behavior. So like when she posts her personal plate, portions seem to be incredibly small, like salad without dressing. She only allows herself to eat like smoothies with a couple of nuts, raw egg, of course, water, vanilla protein for this quick lunch. And people are saying, and admittedly from Daniel in this Times article, he explains, Hannah. She is working so hard on the farm. She's taking care of our 8 kids, handling the cattle. She gets so exhausted, she needs to be in bed for days at a time, sometimes weeks at a time. And people are like, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. So not only do you not have any nannies or actual help around the house, you have people working on the farm, but you don't have people actually helping Hannah take care of the 8 children. She's
That's
also
insane.
cooking, literally farm to table, bringing in the produce, the dairy from all of her livestock and plants, making bread from scratch. Like literally everything is made from scratch.
Is it like confirmed that there is no help with the child? Like, I just find that so hard to believe. If she's creating content on top of, the cooking and the harvesting and the childcare and everything she's doing, like, o- I feel like there has to be someone behind the scenes helping her.
You know what? I think that from what I've gathered from a little bit of my research, it seems like they really pride themselves on raising their children on their own. Like, I think they want full autonomy on how the children grow up and are developed and the things that they hear and listen to. Like, I think they really pride themselves on being the sole people that provide that like upbringing for their children. But what I will say is they have a shit ton of help on the farm, which like you literally need to. You have 328 acres. Like it requires a village. It's an
Right.
army. You need people for that. So I think that they tout themselves as like, milking the cows, but like in actuality, it's more likely than not they're not doing that. They're probably doing it for content. But I genuinely actually believe she is the only person taking care of those kids. And Daniel, I don't think he helps really at all.
Fuck Daniel. Daniel's my new op. He's my new arch nemesis, enemy of the pod.
Who
Um,
else is enemy of the pod? Chase
Elon
Stokes,
Musk.
Elon Musk. Oh yeah, obviously Elon
Elon
Musk.
Musk is like number one enemy of the pod. I guess Chase Stokes. Yeah, Daniel. I guess Daniel now is number three. Um, yeah,
He,
that's insane. And I also feel like you're doing the kids a disservice almost because I feel like there's no way all of their needs are being met, like emotionally, maybe physically, but like emotionally, I feel like there's no way.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Because how can you devote if you were doing all those things, you were making meals from scratch,
Yeah.
you're raising 8 children, like it takes me like, and granted, I'm like a horrible cook, so this is probably why it takes me so long to make a meal. Like, it takes me a long time just to make spaghetti and meatballs. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, I can't even imagine doing that 3 times a day for 8 children.
Also, like you and I both just come from like families of two siblings. Like even sometimes I feel like just growing up with another sibling that you have to like share the affection of your parents with and the attention of your parents with, like just like that keeps multiplying. Like people I'm sure are listening to this that grew up with two siblings and three siblings, but like imagine having seven siblings. Like it seems so unfair to the kids.
No, it does. And I'm sure that people who did grow up in big families, it probably is a lot of fun. Like
Oh,
you're probably
totally.
close with some siblings at some point as you get older, maybe that shifts and evolves, but I'm sure it's a lot of fun. But like I can't even imagine what that's like on the parents. After all, you're
Yeah.
two people at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like you can't just multiply yourselves to make sure that every eighth kid is taken care of. So
Exactly.
that's a great point. Like when you have the access and privilege to be able to hire nannies, you know, why not? Just to make sure that your kids are adequately taken care of, especially like on a farm and they're running around, they're exposed to a lot of live animal, you know what I mean? It doesn't make sense to me. But I think again, it's part of like the control element that Daniel seems to so like tightly have control over, not only the wife, but like the kids as well. It's dark.
Right.
It's dark sided. So, the most controversial thing I think that took the internet by storm was the infamous birthday apron. So, for those of you that are not familiar, as I was not, there is this infamous TikTok video that came out that she has since pinned to her TikTok. Like, I think a little bit, like you said earlier, is rage bait. So, she's opening this present for her birthday, and throughout her unboxing it, she goes, I really hope it's tickets to Greece. And she keeps saying, oh my God, tickets to Greece. Did you give me a plane ticket to Greece? She says it like 3 fucking times throughout the video. She opens it, and mind you, It's like still in the Amazon packaging. He didn't even like take it out and put it into a nice box. It's literally still in like the OG packaging from
Hmm.
whatever. He
Like the
took no,
cardboard box that it
yes, he
was
took
shipped in.
no thought and care. And she opens it up and it's like cloth. And she goes, "Oh, is it a hat for Greece?" And he goes, "No." And she takes it out and it's a little apron. It's an egg apron, which I didn't even know what those were before yesterday. Did you? I didn't know it even existed. Do you know what that is?
I do because of Ballerina Farm, and it's an apron that like you can put eggs in.
So, like, yeah, when your chickens lay, what is it? Like they laid a roost?
They laid eggs.
They laid eggs. Yeah, that you
I don't
collect
know.
the little eggs in their, individual pockets. And there's like 12 little egg pockets in your apron. And everyone was saying, and they continue to say to Daniel and Hannah on all of their TikToks, take her to Greece. How dare you?
Well,
When are you going
like
to Greece?
he comes from a billionaire family. He has no excuse to not take her to Greece if that's what she wants to do. And I remember when this discourse was happening, it's like she gave up her career to give birth to your 8 children without medication or without epidurals, except for one of them. And you can't even fucking buy her tickets to Greece, you piece of shit.
No, it's disgusting behavior. Not only do you have all the money and access, but she also gave you 8 children. Like
Yeah.
she's done everything for you. And I think one thing that's really triggering for a lot of people on that op-ed from the Times, Hannah explains to this reporter, she goes, you know what? Like both Daniel and I gave up dreams. I gave up my dream of becoming a ballerina. Daniel gave up his dream of becoming like an entrepreneur.
Hmm.
And we decided we wanted to live like wildly in like the western mountains, hills of Utah or whatever. And everyone's like quick to point out, wait a minute, wait a minute. He has told you from day one that he was interested in building this farm and having, acres of land and having farm animals. Like this is what most people aspire to after they've done that job. He was able to take that quick pathway to it because
Yeah,
he's wealthy.
wait. That's my question. What does he do for work now?
He doesn't do anything. He works on the farm. That's his full-time job.
So, okay. And they literally like if you're a farmer, you make money from having, I guess, like vendors or whoever it is that
Yes.
buy the produce or the meat or whatever
Butcher,
it is
yes.
from you. So far, that's how farmers make a living. But in his case, he actually had like financial backing for them to, you know,
To
be
start this farm. Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
To even like purchase the livestock, to hire a full army of people to help
Yeah.
manage the farm. Like
And
it's a
have this like extremely aspirational lifestyle that normal farmers don't really afford.
right. I had this actually a college roommate who grew up on a strawberry farm in like central California.
Oh my God, that's so cute.
Yeah.
What a cute life.
Yeah. So she came from like really quote unquote idyllic background, like really humble background. And it's like the normal farmer, just knowing how she lived her life and knowing the family she came from. Very frugal, not, it's like your one dad and his tractor. Like when you think of farm life, I think people don't understand that it's not the glitz and the glamour. It's like hard fucking work. You have to wake up super early,
Mhm.
come back super late. You're dealing with like it's really intensive physical labor, and the way that they glamorize it and again proposition their lifestyle, you too can attain this lifestyle, but it's like but you literally have like 50 people also helping you that you're not photographing as well. So again, that's why people are so fucking pissed at them.
I worked on a horse farm one summer and it was a lot of shoveling shit.
I can't even imagine. Like I couldn't do it. Like I'm not
Yeah.
joking. You remember that one episode of Real Housewives of Orange County when they went to Montana like last season and they like all had to take turns shoveling
Hmm.
shit?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to sound like a princess because I'm not high maintenance, but that is so much work. I would hate it after 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's like manual labor.
People just look at TikTok and they see Hannah like kneading sourdough and they're like, that's all it takes to be a farmer.
And I did not know, again, this is how little I know about Ballerina Farm just in general. I did not know that she had like an online store, like an online shop where you could purchase things because of course she does. But again, it's like she's selling this lifestyle, this like aspirational lifestyle and profiting from it. And not that I'm saying there's anything inherently wrong with that. I just think again, it's like she is selling this dream life that is just not realistic to most people. Um, I don't know. It's so interesting to me.
Yeah, and I came across this TikTok of someone saying she is different than other entrepreneurs. Like, actually, no, you know what she actually kind of reminds me of? I was gonna juxtapose her against the Skinny Confidential, but I actually think that they have very similar type brands where they're selling this lifestyle. Like
Hmm.
the Skinny Confidential and Ballerina Farm both sell products. Like Skinny Confidential has the ice roller thing,
Hmm.
Ballerina Farm has a slew of like flour and butcher boxes and all these things. They are at the
Yeah.
end of the day hawking products. That's how they're able to acquire even more wealth than they already have.
Yes. And it's like, you will never have my life because I'm married to a billionaire, but you can buy my salt or my
Right.
pitcher. You can
So
have like a little piece of it.
exactly, and that's why she is so successful because people see a little tiny piece of her life that she is willing to show on TikTok, and they say,
The ground beef from her cows you can buy
"Yep," and people,
for
yeah,
$110 for 10 pounds.
and there's a lot of uh, speculation as to whether, you know, how do you even know that's really coming from the
Yeah.
ballerina farm? You don't have to disclose it. And I think on the packaging, Olivia had written that there's some kind of disclosure that says from the ballerina farm or other local farms like close by, or it's like something like that. So it's
Yeah.
you don't read the fine print, but like people like Jackie Oshry, for example, who was like so bought into the ballerina farm, made making sourdough quite literally her entire personality over the last year. They think that they can achieve this same lifestyle when they purchase the protein flour or the sourdough starter or the little measuring cups, the copper measuring cups that newsflash, most of the products that she sells are just based, they're coming from China. They just slap a ballerina farm label on it and they can sell it for 50x margin. Um,
It's insane.
but I get why she's so like even I'm not even into this, and I was looking, and I'm like, fuck, that's kind of cute. Like even with all this research I was doing, I was like, fuck, I kind of want to buy
Okay,
some of
really
this.
like that cutting board. Should have added to my registry.
No,
Um,
literally.
Wait, I just got to this part on the outline. The kids are constantly seen chugging milk in jars straight from the cow. I'm gonna throw up. Again, we touched on the raw milk thing, but ugh, that
No,
visual, ugh.
it's absolutely just what?
I was just sorry. I got to this part of the outline that says raw milk is also used by the alt-right to promote white
So,
supremacy
okay, thank you. Oh my God,
because they
I forgot
think
to put that.
only white people can digest
Oh my God,
lactose. Oh my God, I did not know that.
I
That
forgot about
tracks
that.
though. That
It
tracks
does.
though with the people that I see pushing the raw milk thing.
No, thank you so much. That's the most important part of the outline. That part that I forgot to put in. Most Asians cannot digest milk because it's not in our diet. Like we just don't eat
Same
it.
with a lot of Jews that are lactose intolerant.
Yeah, because it's not in your diet. No, it's like fucked up. It actually, when I read that, I'm like, that makes so much sense that like Maha is touting this raw milk phenomena because more often than not, people like you and I that look like you and I can't digest that protein. No, it's fucked up. It's actually disgusting. I forgot about
That's
that.
insane, but that so tracks. Like I was saying, the people that I know that like promote it on Instagram that I'm like, wait, what do you mean you're promoting raw milk? Like it is an alt-right thing. Like it's the RFK.
Hmm.
Oh my God. That's
No, it's chill.
crazy. I
It's
did not know
actually
that.
it's spine chilling. Um, and I really wanted to quickly point out just like how the feminist movement has evolved over the last 15 years. Because when we were in high school, when we were being taught about feminism, the feminist mystique by Betty Friedan, like we had this picture of these women that were like meeting in basements and saying like, we want to work, which like
Hmm.
great, but like also like I'm fucking stressed. So like that's a whole other
I'm
topic for
tired. I'm
like
tired.
I don't want to work anymore. Like I just want a podcast. But
Mhm.
it's interesting because like I would say in 2013, 2014, you had this like girl boss era, right? You have Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In when people are realizing like, holy shit, after we were touted this whole thing of like hustle culture, we need to like lean in, we need to be the best, we need to like shatter that glass ceiling. And people were soon realizing, like, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. We're being sold like a false bill of goods. The girl bossing could only happen for some time, for a little bit of time until you realize that you will never amount to that unless you kind of come from an extreme amount of wealth or extreme amount of
Hmm.
privilege or some kind of nepotism, right? I think we all kind of were frustrated at some point of like, I've been hustling for so damn long and how come I'm making minimum wage or why am I like not progressing in my career like I should be? It's because there's a lot of inherent factors that allow you to crash that glass ceiling.
Yeah.
Um,
And also, I think something that's important to note is that, like, just biologically speaking, women have to carry the children and give birth to children. And that inherently unfortunately, affects people's careers and career trajectories because you have to take time off work. And a lot of companies do have mat leave. Some situations don't if you're a freelancer or whatever it is. Like, it's just so much harder on the women. And that's just biologically speaking, a difference in how a woman's career can progress as someone who wants to be a parent versus how a man who wants to become a father, his career is hardly affected, you know?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think that we weren't taught that when we were younger. Like when we weren't really thinking about having kids, maybe in our teens or early 20s. And then when we're at this stage, we're like, wait a minute, like it is hard to do it all. And I think people were
Hmm.
becoming really fatigued by this fake life that we were sold for so long. So then here comes along, it's almost like this different form of feminism when you juxtapose a woman that are feeling overwhelmed in the corporate space who are now feeling overwhelmed with like child rearing and like
Right.
isolation and maternity leave life with all these toddlers running around, and there's comes this whole different wave now that it's been hitting our stratosphere, our TikTok, our Instagrams, where now we're there's women that are advocating for like this life that rejects the drive for money, for climbing the corporate ladder. And we're now like leaning into like, oh, gentle domesticity. Let's do hands-on motherhood. We're like, we're here to serve our husbands. Like it's completely shifted and it's almost become in vogue. And I think that's what is so
Hmm.
damaging about Ballerina Farm and just what she's pushing online. It's more than just being a really pretty face with a gorgeous home and a farm. It's like you're actually modifying feminism in such a way like we've gone such
Hmm.
a 180 to where it's becoming like now counterproductive and somewhat dangerous.
I think also it speaks to where we're at politically, obviously, is that it's become way more mainstream in recent years to be, MAGA and to be openly, bigoted and extremely far right. Like, I'm not even gonna get into like the Kanye of it all because I don't want to give it any attention or airtime, but it's like that, being a Nazi is like normalized and not saying that, you're necessarily a Nazi because you want to be a trad wife or whatever it is, but there clearly is a connection between these traditional like women stay at home in the kitchen, um, and being more far right.
Right. Yeah, I think this is the more that we lean into this type of trad wifery and this kind of image of what a perfect woman looks like. It's like it kind of makes sense why it's becoming more in vogue. Like, look who we elected as a president. And like, I know
Yeah.
everyone hates when we talk about politics. Like, I'm not even trying to like shade anything. It's like, this is
No,
factual.
yeah, we're just, commenting on the reality of like the social media landscape right now is that it's
Right.
more on vogue than ever to be more conservative in your views.
Hmm.
Um, and wait, also, I feel like we're all over the place. Sorry, or I'm all over the place. Christy's trying to keep us on track, but just to clarify the ages of the children so you guys can like get a picture of how old these 8 kids are. Henry is 12, Charles is 10, George is 9, Francis is 7, Lois is 5, Martha is 3, Mabel's 2, Flora is 1. Wow. So it's like da 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 da, da, like all right in a row, basically.
Yeah. So she's 34 and she had her first kid at 20. That makes it 22. So she literally has not stopped. Imagine having your first child at 22 and and you have not stopped. Like Sophie, imagine yourself at 22 right now,
That's
okay? And
so
think about
funny to
how
think about.
every year thereafter you've either been pregnant with another child or raising more child than you had the year before, more children than you had the year before.
Nah, I was at the club.
Oh, I was doing a lot of crazy shit in San Francisco. Like I pieces of my life that yeah we can't speak
Yeah.
about on this podcast, but one thing that I wanted to touch on is animal abuse. um
Yeah.
no, this is what really PMO. I love it, by the way, when people do that on TikTok, this PMO.
This really PMO. Yeah.
And I remember when like the US got banned on TikTok, everyone kept saying like the PMO comments stopped, like people sort of stopped becoming pissed off because like Americans are just always pissed off. Anyways, I'm going on a tangent, I apologize, but There were a lot of notice people were noticing that a lot of the animals would die just suddenly on the farm. And there was questions about, wait, do they watch their animals closely? Do they consult veterinarians? And people think that because they can replace animals so easily with, being rich and all, then they neglect proper care for these animals. And most notably, their cow named Tulip, which I think is just such a sweet name. I mean, like it actually makes me like want to cry.
Wait, did something happen to Tulip?
Tulip just died out of nowhere, like suddenly. And then they had another calf that was a stillborn, and then another stillbirth ended up happening to a sheep. And mind you, she continues to post all these photos of dead animals to her Instagram, to be clear.
Oh my God, fuck you, Ballerina Farm.
No, like I have chills. Like when it comes to animal abuse, like I actually
Why is she
will
posting the dead animals on her Instagram? What is wrong with her?
like be a weirdo and post that on like I don't even
Post
know.
on
It's
close friends at least.
yeah, no, literally. Ballerina Farm even posted a video once of her husband Daniel shooting a pig to death after it didn't recover from an illness that they discovered the day prior. And there was
And
no
she
mention.
posted the video?
Yep. And
Oh
there was
no, I'm okay. Fuck
done.
this person. I'm done. Fuck you, Ballerina Farm.
Yep. And there was no mention of like them consulting a vet, giving this pig antibiotics, anything to try and save it. And these cows aren't also on like a consistent milking schedule. They just do it whenever it works for them, which can lead often to cows having an infection because of that. And there's this really disturbing picture that Olivia threw on here of one of their cows. Like, I know people always use the term cow to describe someone like a little bit larger in size, but like this cow is literally skin and bones. I didn't even realize it was possible for a cow to look like this. So that's, and the last
Wait,
thing I
have
will,
people, I feel like just in general in these situations, like, you know, the documentary Don't Fuck with Cats that came
of
out
course,
years ago. People take animal abuse very seriously, as they should. Have people tried to contact like the authorities about this animal abuse?
that's a great question. I don't know about that. I have no idea. But I mean, to me, there's enough evidence here that would at least raise a
That
call.
just like is, yeah, that's shocking to me because she has such a huge, massive following and people take animal abuse extremely, extremely seriously. That would surprise me if they haven't, if that hasn't happened before.
Right. And there's
Like,
this
I want to call the cops right now.
no, it's actually really disturbing. And there is this Instagram video that literally had my blood boiling at like 11 p.m. the other night. So there's these geese that live on their farm, and Hannah was running like towards them. And I think Daniel was photographing her, and he goes, "Look at these geese! Like they're crazy. They always run after us." These weren't even running after Hannah, but she literally
She kicked it.
kicks,
Yeah, I watched that video. That
kicks.
was one of the videos you sent me where she kicks the goose.
It is
Ugh.
just it is so dark-sided, and I think above all else, if you can take anything away from this episode, which I know that we covered a lot, like whether Daniel's holding her hostage to her dreams and aspirations, whether her kids are handling cleavers, whether or not the raw milk that they're feeding their kids, and how it aligns with white supremacy, like the animal abuse, it just there's too much to ignore, and it makes me wonder why this woman continues to have such a platform. But then again, actually, why am I even asking that question? Because I know exactly why. It's people that are in agreement with her lifestyle and wish to aspire to that lifestyle are having this selective outrage. Like we'll be outraged about
Right.
something else, but this we'll leave it.
So I like this section also on the outline that Olivia, our researcher did an amazing job with. Um, like, what if it's all a facade? What if it's all cosplay? It's
Yeah.
just for show, it's just for social media, it's just to make money, and it's not like genuinely their lifestyle. I mean, if the cutting board and the products are from China, the meat isn't even from their farm, it's all a facade. Like that could be the case. It's kind of like the Nara Smith thing when we were
Hmm.
talking about it with Shannon from Fluently Forward. Like Nara Smith, people have seen her eating like Burger King or whatever it is. And like she's apparently in on the joke and it's all just for social media. Like, could that be the case here?
That's interesting that you bring that up because people have theorized on Reddit that her huge farmhouse that's like whatever boasts 2,600 square foot or whatever, people even think that that in and of itself is like a content house, that they actually do not even live in
A
that
hype
house.
house.
Yeah, like a hype house with their 8 children, exactly. And that they live in like a separate house, which like that's neither here nor there. It's very immaterial. It doesn't really matter where if they live there or not. But I think it just speaks to that
Hmm.
exact theory that you're talking about of is this whole thing just like a setup to engage people, to make rage bait, to have people buy things from ballerinafarm.com.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Rage bait, just social media fame, which they have found extremely quickly from this type of content.
Yeah.
Wow.
I I think that their fame and their following has skyrocketed insurmountably over the last 4 years. And I think it speaks to again like the political climate. So it's no surprise actually. I'm answering my own question that why they have such a cult like following. Because at the end of the day, for like as against them as I am, when I was doing research for the episode and looking at TikToks, I even found myself like invested in it. Like it was just so pretty to watch. Like above all else, it was just aesthetic. Admittedly, I would
Hmm.
never like be influenced by it or whatever, but I was like, I could see why people really enjoy it. Um, I think Ballerina Farm is here to stay, unfortunately, and her stupid fucking husband, Daniel Nealman,
Oh my God,
unfortunately.
I hate Daniel, but I also kind of hate her too.
No, I don't. I think that as women, as a human being, we have autonomy, but like knowing that she has created such a lucrative business of herself. Like people follow Ballerina Farm for Hannah Nealman. They don't follow her because of Daniel Nealman. In fact, I think they would prefer if he just kind of stays out of the frame. They don't really give a fuck whether he's there or not. Like she
Hmm.
has the means to leave if she wants to. And I think that
Yeah.
the fact that she continues to stay just shows like, oh, maybe you really are weak. There's people that have left for a lot less. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, really dark sided, guys. I was like really had no idea about Ballerina Farm before Olivia did so much amazing research and like I was honestly just really disturbed like researching for the episode, reading the outline, looking at TikToks, reading articles, like just
It
feeling really
really,
grossed out.
it really is like such an interesting phenomenon, just the trad wife of it all. Because again, like I feel like now, like if you think of like the girl boss era, 2016, oh my God, I love Sophia Amoruso.
Oh my God, Nasty Gal?
Oh my God, Nasty Gal. I also loved the Netflix show. I was the only one who watched it and loved it. Um, but like that was like 10 years ago now. And it's kind of like a pendulum. Like we had the
Yes.
girl boss moment, and now it's like the pendulum has swung, and now it's all about being a trad wife. And oh my God, it's so interesting. This quote where this is from the New York Times article. Is she a feminist? And she says, I feel like I'm a femin. There's so many, and she stops herself. There's so many different ways you could take that word. I don't even know what feminism means anymore. She absolutely feels as though she has become politicized by other people. We try so hard to be neutral and be ourselves, and people put a label on everything. This is just our normal life. So again, there's that argument, like I was saying, where it's like, well, if she's just living her life and like making content, like what is there to politicize? What is there to critique? But it does seem like she's kind of selling this agenda, pushing this agenda, which a lot of people could argue is problematic and anti-woman, you know?
Yeah, and I think to that quote, to a degree, that could be that I think yeah, if you are just living your life and you just want to showcase it for people and you happen to monetarily benefit from that, the more power to you. I think it's more so just the things that she has hawked and pushed down our throats that becomes a little bit more egregious, like the raw milk, and she keeps like pushing that. Like that, I think is like a really
Hmm.
key to her brand and what has caused like a lot of waves like downstream to all of her viewers and like the culture at large is this raw
Hmm.
milk thing, which as we've just found out is like uh, embedded in
Yeah.
racism.
Yeah, I really like what Olivia wrote here also. She said, what is most scary to me is how their image is like the right wing's wet dream. It's giving eugenics, it's giving Maha. Like we were saying, like there's something very like just like white supremacist about it all.
Yeah. And I don't think that's controversial to say. Like I think that the
Yeah,
evidence supports that that claim.
right. And I also think it's interesting. And again, this is another point that Olivia added to this outline. Like, shout out Olivia who killed this. This outline is almost 30 pages long, you guys.
Yeah.
Um, how also there's so many women right now that may feel like they were failed by like the girl boss era. And, the economy fucking sucks right now. I have so many friends that are in the middle of, job hunting, and it is so impossible right now. And I can see how that like could radicalize a woman, like watching this
Absolutely.
content in the middle of, applying to 70 different jobs and feeling so fatigued by it all, just being like, yeah, like, why not become a trad wife? You know?
I mean, to a degree, it's like kind of like the way we always talk to one another of like, oh, corporate America's like soul sucking. It's so hard. Like I wake up so
Yeah.
stressed. It's like I would love to do this full time. Like I get the appeal. No doubt. I
Yeah.
get the appeal, but I'm not even really judging it.
Until you're in it and you're being financially controlled by a man
That's the
and
difference.
and you realize you have no rights. And like look at Ballerina Farm who just wants to go to Greece. And she can't because her husband who just wants a freaking what's it called to give birth, an epidural.
And how she has to whisper that in front of the reporter such that he doesn't have to give a shit about it
Like,
once she
yeah,
leaves.
like from the outside, it might look appealing because of this, facade that she's putting on. But once you actually are a trad wife, it's very different being on the inside.
It's like what they say. People always want to marry for money, marry for money. And yeah, I mean, it sounds
But
fabulous
when
and
you marry
glamorous.
for money, you earn every penny.
Correct. And that is and like to
Like,
be,
do you think Erica Jane liked fucking Tom Girardi?
yeah. No, I mean it's absolutely true. And I've seen it in my own like friend group. It's actually crazy. I never realized it. And I'm like, holy fuck. So oh my God, this one was like honestly really hard to dive into for me. It just I felt so icky. And I don't know, I'm usually not that rattled by things like this. I feel like I don't know. I have friends that can have different points of view, and I don't know. It's okay for me sometimes, but this one I was like, this is just really dark, and I can't even really be mad at him fully, like you said. They're kind of equal partners in this.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something very dark-sided about both of them. Um, like they're both enemies of the pod, I feel like at this point.
Yeah,
Wow.
and it
We should
makes
make like
me
an official enemies of the pod list, by the way.
at Jenna,
At
yeah, or social girl.
yeah, writing this down in my mind. Um, wow. Well, you did an amazing job walking me through this, and Olivia, our researcher, did an amazing job with this outline also. Like this is I learned so much.
No, seriously, I did too. With knowing nothing about her, and yeah, we try to be as succinct as possible with all the detail, but
Yeah, there's a lot. You guys, like again, like this outline is almost 30 pages. So I also felt this way when we did our Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively episode. There's just like so much. So if there's something that you feel like we forgot to mention and should call out in a future episode, please leave us a comment, message us on at SnarkBaitPod, or you know how to reach us. Text us. Um,
text. No one's been doing that, but I think the best way,
oh my God, no, we do get fun texts. Not like so often, but we do.
some people are so because we read every single one of them. I have to say we can't respond. Like there's not a way for us to respond, but Sophie and I read every single text that you
It's
guys
like the
send.
one way to reach us where like it'll pop up on both of our phones.
Yeah.
So if you want to, like, again, we won't be able to respond, but like if you want to make sure we see it, please send us a text. Um,
And you can do so by just going into the show notes and there's a link and it'll just take you directly to your SMS and you
yeah.
can text us directly. And I think we've talked about it before, but we're trying to grow the show. I think I say this every single episode, but if you could please, if you feel so inclined to follow us on Instagram at SnarkBaitPod, we have so many inside jokes, so much funny Dark Energy Tuesday Instagram drops. I'm howling, screaming,
Our
crying.
Instagram is so fun, you guys. You're
And,
missing out. You're
and we
missing out
have,
if you're not following us.
you really are, and you're gonna love the Valentine's Day little
Haha. Don't
scroll.
spoil it. Don't
I
spoil
won't. Oh my God, of
it.
course not, because it'll come out tomorrow. So
Which reminds me, yeah, happy almost Valentine's Day, everyone. We love you.
so
You're our
much.
Valentines. Um, I'd become a trad wife for each and every one of you.
Dark.
Well, again, text us, leave us a 5-star review, follow us, get in touch. You know the drill. Thank you guys for listening. And again, thank you to Olivia for this amazing research, Jenna for being our amazing social media manager, and Jordan, our incredible producer. And yeah, Christy, you killed it this episode.
Oh my God, thank you so much.
And thank you all for listening. We'll see you
Talk,
next time.
talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.